Chapter 246. Wang Shuli exclaimed without hesitation, "It must be an affair or he never loved you. After all, there are no decent guys out there." Lu Shu hesitated for a moment and cleared his throat. "Ahem, can you not be so pessimistic? I think that your boyfriend is dead." Wang Shuli? He Hui? From Wang Shuli's distress, plus 188. From He Hui's distress, plus 588. For some reason, Wang Shuli thought that Lu Shu was special and that he had some kind of unique quality. Despite his background, he carried himself with an unknown confidence and strength. But to say he was someone of importance, he had a too down-to-earth vibe. The atmosphere was awkward. Grr. Wang Shuli's tummy grumbled. She must be hungry. Wang Shuli's face turned red from the embarrassment. The snacks were finished in the afternoon. Lu Shu was thinking that since he and Lu Xiaoyu wouldn't get hungry, and that Wang Shuli and company had treated them kindly, he should share some food with them. Lu Xiaoyu kept the potato chips while the biscuits and other food were given to Wang Shuli. In the end, the aunties had their own food while Wang Shuli and company had Lu Shu's help. Everyone except Yuan Liantua and company had food to eat. From Yuan Liantua's distress, plus 99. From the looks of it, everyone would have to spend the night on the bus, and Lu Xiaoyu tugged on Lu Shu's sleeve. "Lu Shu, aren't you able to create crepes? We can sell crepes here." "I can't create crepes," Lu Shu replied. Lu Xiaoyu looked at Lu Shu skeptically. "Crepes are impossible, and stop looking at me like that. However, there's stinky tofu." Although he denied the fact that he could create crepes, Lu Xiaoyu's words reminded Lu Shu of something else. He had not been selling stinky tofu for the past few days, but he was still entering the lottery to obtain his daily chi fruits. Which meant that the stinky tofu had been accumulated to a rather large amount. Lu Shu estimated that over the past 4 days, he had accumulated over 200 servings of stinky tofu. Isn't this the perfect opportunity to earn money? Seeing that the traffic jam stretched over a few kilometers, not everyone in these cars had emergency food. 200 servings of stinky tofu wouldn't even be enough. But he could keep entering the lottery. Although the maximum amount of chi he could handle a day was 2 chi fruits, he could store the extra fruits inside his inventory. Whenever there was a traffic jam on the highway, nearby villagers would use the opportunity to earn a handsome sum. But there weren't any nearby villages around the Qingzhou's highway, which created the perfect opportunity for Lu Shu. But the problem was the storage of this stinky tofu. He couldn't possibly churn out 200 servings of stinky tofu from thin air. Lu Shu really wanted to earn this money, but before he could carefully think out a plan, Lu Xiaoyu was worried. "Will we be able to sell the stinky tofu?" Lu Shu replied gleefully, "Don't worry. To what do we owe our success to?" Lu Xiaoyu pondered for a moment, being sly. "Lu Shu." It was already 10+ p.m. and night as the darkness enveloped the entire lake area. The drivers were exhausted after a day of grumbling, and everyone returned to their vehicles to rest. Li Zimo sat inside his car alone with his car engine turned off. Who knew when this jam would end, so he had to save his petrol. At this moment, Li Zimo received a call as he answered. "Hello? Son, having fun on your holiday? When will you be back?" Li Zimo glanced at the long queue in front of him. It's fun. I'll be back in a few days." He was used to reporting only good news and not bad news. Telling your parents about your troubles outside would only cause them unnecessary worry, and they might even be able to help. "Son, I heard that the road to Chaka Salt Lake is severely jammed. So try to avoid it." Li Zimo let out a bitter smile. "I'm already here." And to make things worse, he did not prepare any emergency food and was about to faint from the hunger. Knock knock. Li Zimo turned around and was greeted by someone wearing a cap with his face hidden by a t-shirt with a robotic cat printed on it knocking on his car window. The other party was carrying a small backpack which seemed rather unusual. Li Zimo hung up on his mother as he rolled the car window down. brother, why are you selling DVDs here? How much for one? His car had a DVD player. What DVD? Lu Shu mumbled and asked through the t-shirt. I'm here to sell freshly made stinky tofu. From Li Zimo's distress, plus 199. I'm not judging, but do you have to dress up like this? Li Zimo was shocked. I don't have a stall license, Lu Shu explained, but Li Zimo was still skeptical. How much? Li Zimo asked. 50. Lu Shu answered calmly. That's crazy. One serving for stinky tofu for $50, you might as well rob a bank. I am robbing. I don't know what to say. From Li Zimo's distress, plus 110. Li Zimo finally understood why this scum had covered his face. He must be afraid of being remembered and suffer a beating in the future. In fact, Lu Shu was afraid that someone might realize his unlimited supply of stinky tofu. But there shouldn't be anyone who's this bored, and everyone was in their own cars. After selling a few cars ahead, those in the back would not be able to see him anymore. Asking from car to car may be troublesome, but it was a much safer option. One serving of stinky tofu would normally sell for $5, but now, $50. Such an opportunity wouldn't come by so easily, and Lu Shu was determined to make use of it. And another important point was that this business would generate a lot of distress points. Chapter 247. Huge amounts of distress points could be amassed when people were hungry. I only have 3 portions, do you want it or not? Lu Shu urged. Yes. Make it slightly cheaper. Li Zimo grinded his teeth. He was really too hungry. 48.50. Why still care about the 50 cents? 48. Deal. Lu Shu put on a show and placed his hand in his bag to retrieve a portion of stinky tofu for Li Zimo. Li Zimo was stunned. Damn, why is it so smelly? Just as you said, Lu Shu said as he received the money from Li Zimo delightedly and stuffed it into Lu Xiaoyu's bag. How could it be called stinky tofu if it isn't stinky? Lu Shu still had over 200 portions of stinky tofu in his storage. At the start, he was still worried that he couldn't sell the tofu if his price was too high. But it now seemed like his worries were unnecessary. Although his asking price was 50, with some bargaining, he could sell it at around $40. Lu Shu lamented softly. Chinese people had good spending habits. It was all right even for poor families to spend quite a lot outside when they needed to, even if they had to scrimp and save on a daily basis. Within an hour, he sold all of his 200-plus portions. Lu Shu was excited. If this jam carries on for 2 days, wouldn't he be rich from selling stinky tofu? Just as he drew another 400 stinky tofu, he amassed another 8 chi fruits. At this point, Lu Xiaoyu sneaked over and pulled Lu Shu away by his sleeve. Lu Shu asked curiously, "What's wrong?" "My business is booming." Lu Xiaoyu passed Lu Shu her phone. On it was a thread within the Golden Foundation, and its title was, Jam on Qingzhou Huanhu Road. Who can tell me what exactly is going on in front? Lu Shu hesitated for a moment. This title looked quite normal, no one knew what was happening in front. Those who knew couldn't tell others about what's going on. But he noticed something wrong when he saw the 14th comment, from someone called Lord Zimo. I'm stuck on Huanhu Road as well. I bumped into someone selling stinky tofu just now, and it was extremely exorbitant. One for $50 and there were only 3. I wouldn't have bought it if I wasn't so extremely hungry. It's too unscrupulous. Lu Shu pondered. Wasn't he referring to him? He continued to scroll down, and below this comment from Lord Zimo was another person's. We have a similar fate. I was scammed too. 3 portions and 2 of them were bought by us. Isn't this fate? This guy is really too unscrupulous, but the tofu is indeed quite tasty, better than I expected. Lu Shu took a deep breath. He had a bad feeling about this. He continued to scroll down, and another person commented as well. I'm the guy who bought the third portion. The three of us really are brothers who share the same fate. Immediately after that was another person's reply, then which is, the one I bought. I bought one too. I bargained till it's 38.50. The 50 cents didn't matter anymore. Wasn't there only 3 portions? The comment above must be a joke. I bought 3 portions alone. Lord Zimo's reply, you guys wait, let me check. From Lee Zimo's distress, plus 299. How could there be only 3? The guy who complained about the 50 cents seemed like he wasn't lying. It's really evident. Just by these few comments, there can't be only 3 portions sold. There might even be 300. But of course, some replies were just to join in the commotion. How many people did this guy cheat? Lu Shu was scratching his head. The distress points were flowing into his records rapidly, although this was a good thing, he definitely couldn't sell his stinky tofu anymore. Another thread had started within the Golden Foundation, search for the mysterious guy selling stinky tofu on Huanhu Road. Damn this. Lu Shu immediately looked for a secluded corner and removed his cover. All these people were really troublesome. Couldn't they just eat their tofu? Why bother discussing it online? Lu Shu's eyes lit up. He had always wanted to join in the commotion on the Golden Foundation, wasn't this a good opportunity? Once more people noticed him in the forum, wouldn't he gain even more distress points constantly? Anyway, no one would be able to recognize him now. His account on the Golden Foundation was also registered with a new card and there was no reason to hesitate. He immediately replied to the thread, I am the guy. Lu Shu trudged triumphantly while holding on to Lu Xiaoyu, thinking that he would definitely gain a massive influx of distress points. He would become the next big thing online at any time. But when he checked his phone, below his reply was a string of replies claiming that it's them. Lu Shu took a deep breath, he had really underestimated them. They really wanted to impersonate him? Couldn't they let him become an online sensation smoothly? Was it really so difficult? But at this moment, Lu Shu suddenly noticed a commotion behind him. He didn't understand what was going on and stood silently with Lu Xiaoyu. Many people alighted from their cars to see what was going on. Seeing this situation, Lu Shu held on to Lu Xiaoyu even closer to prevent them from being separated. Within a few minutes, Lu Shu saw soldiers carrying water, biscuits, cup noodles, medical supplies and other similar items running along Huanhu Road. They then distributed these supplies to everyone. There were many soldiers, but because cars could not be driven in, they had to use their hands to bring all these supplies to everyone. It seemed like they had to run at least a few kilometers. Although the temperature in Qingzhou was rather cooling, especially at night, these soldiers were soaked in sweat. Many drivers thanked them profusely, but they returned to work upon completing their tasks. One driver didn't feel too well, even showing signs of being ill. Without any hesitation, a soldier carried him and ran off. Lu Shu held on to Lu Xiaoyu's hand, let's go, there's no need to sell stinky tofu anymore. It can't be sold anymore. Lu Shu, why are they so passionate about helping others? Lu Xiaoyu asked in curiosity. Because of their belief? Lu Shu wasn't too sure. Would you be like them in the future? Lu Xiaoyu questioned. Probably not, I'm not that magnanimous, Lu Shu shook his head. But after some silence, he added, but I'll help them fight or something along those lines. Chapter 248. When it came to things like fighting, Lu Shu already had quite an abundance of experience. Be it bumping into Chang Hengyue at the start of the remains or encountering that weird Class C spy afterward, regardless of it being meaningful or not, Lu Shu had made a significant contribution through fighting. It was as if all the spies within Yuzhou's Heavenly Network and Daoyuan class were taken care of, or he wouldn't have received countless distress points from Japanese names back then. They must be facing many problems since they lost all their spies in Yuzhou after just one remain. It could be said that all the Japanese spies in Yuzhou were wiped out. Luckily, Lu Shu didn't reveal his ability of real name identification or any of his other weird abilities. If he had, he would have dared to approach Li Xiao and go through the entire list of Daoyuan students and Heavenly Network members in the system. How many distress points would that be? Lu Shu and Lu Xiaoyu didn't need any of the supplies brought in for the civilians. Yuan Liangtua and his friends, on the other hand, almost teared up when they saw the biscuits. Those people who bought stinky tofu also received supplies from the soldiers. All of them were then holding onto a tofu in one hand while Lu Shu received a constant influx of distress points from them. But the military's task of relief was not that simple. The road to Chaka Salt Lake was jammed on both sides. There were many traffic police directing and soothing traffic at the back, telling all drivers that no cars will be allowed to pass through this place for the next half a month. After their hopes of waiting out were shattered, cars at the back slowly showed signs of backing out of the huge traffic jam. Although there was no clear indication as to when the jam could be completely solved, there was at least hope now. The tour bus, at this moment, was filled with the sound of squabbles. The aunties were extremely displeased. Fancy us bumping into such a situation on a tour. What are you going to do about it? Tour guide Wang was in a tight spot. What could he do about this? This was a decent tour compared to others where families had to bring their own tents. These people got their own tents and had good food to dine on. If they really wanted a refund, how much did he have to pay? What about his own commission? Wang Shuli and her friends didn't seem to care much about this. She turned her head to ask Lu Shu and Lu Xiaoyu, "Do you have any plans if we return to Shijing City? Do you want to go and explore the nightlife in Shijing City with us?" Lu Shu and Lu Xiaoyu glanced at each other for a moment before Lu Shu started shaking his head. "We won't tag along with you guys anymore, we might have some other stuff to attend to." Regardless of whether they returned to the city and waited for an opportunity to come back to enter the remains or staying here now, Lu Shu and Lu Xiaoyu definitely had to separate themselves from the group. In this sort of thriving magical climate, it was no doubt that many people, apart from them, wanted a part in this remains. But honestly speaking, Lu Shu used to feel that the power within the country was concentrated within the Heavenly Network and everything was under their rule. But upon encountering Kumbha Monastery, he noticed there were many more priests and high beings who stayed out of these affairs. Lu Shu definitely didn't think that the Heavenly Network neglected this aspect of the magical era. There must be some other reason. But in reality, under the Heavenly Network's all-round rule, Lu Shu didn't feel that the Buddhist priests had much ground to be a threatening force to the Heavenly Network. Because the Heavenly Network was the main force in the country. If only Jiang Shui was here. He could ask him if he wasn't sure of anything. It was rather slow to try to comprehend everything on his own. As to the issue with the Buddhist priests, why were they never mentioned in the Golden Foundation? It seemed like they segregated themselves from this world of magic and training on purpose. Because of the incident at Kumbha Monastery, Lu Shu didn't have a good feeling towards Buddhist priests. The first encounter resulted in them spouting some nonsense about him. But he didn't exactly hold a grudge against them because of this. It wasn't fair to just hate them because of a minor incident. He could just avoid them in the future. This time, if the remains really surfaced on the land of Qingzhou, Lu Shu wanted to see if the Buddhist priests would come over and stake a claim. He could also understand the Heavenly Network's stance on these people. Just then, an old priest was walking slowly along the fields towards Chaka Salt Lake. His movements were slow, so slow that he didn't seem normal. But the speed at which he was moving was fast and within an instant, he was out of Lu Shu's sight and had already entered the area of the Salt Lake. Lu Shu also felt a huge amount of magical energy waves from the man. This was a heavenly king. Was he the old priest who guarded southern Tibet? It actually made sense upon some thought. Now that the strength of the Indians was significantly depleted, they weren't much of a threat. And as for those people at Southeast Asia, they were still shocked by the incident at the remains in Laos. They didn't even have the ability to protect themselves, why would they go overseas to look for trouble? It was the north that they had to be wary of. From this perspective, it was indeed more suitable for the old priest who guarded southern Tibet to be sent here. He once heard Li Xianyi mention that this priest had a bad temper. Lu Shu was curious back then, having practiced for tens of years, why would his temper still be bad? It's exactly because of his bad temper that he has to practice to be calm. If his temper was good, he might have just become a secluded monk, Li Xianyi once lamented. Lu Shu was stunned back then, who knew there could be such an effect? And in the end, the product was a Class B practitioner? No one would have anything to say about his bad temper. Lu Shu himself didn't have any impression of that guy. Lu Shu. Why are you here? A familiar voice was heard behind Lu Shu. Lu Shu immediately turned around. Jiang Shuyi? You. Speak of the devil. Lu Shu was just thinking how convenient it would be if Jiang Shuyi was here moments ago. He wouldn't be making blind guesses about everything. Wang Shuli, who was next to Lu Shu, noticed that he was stunned by Jiang Shuyi's appearance. She looked at Jiang Shuyi's expression and said, "Little Shu, could this be your girlfriend? So pretty." Kiki, he's a guy. Lu Shu was rather awkward. Wang Shuli was shocked. Guy? A male on his identification card as well? Jiang Shuyi walked off a vehicle accompanied by 2 soldiers as if he wanted to enter the restricted area directly. Honestly, Lu Shu really didn't expect Jiang Shuyi to be here. Jiang Shui smiled. I took a plane here to use the magical energy here. Lu Shu was enlightened. Since he had already said it, it was certain that there would be a remains surfacing here. He couldn't comprehend Jiang Shuyi's background even more. This remain was just opening and he's already here to make use of the magical energy? It had to be known that the magical energy in a remain was akin to an experience multiplier in a video game. It could be said that in Lu Shu's knowledge, the best magical land would be the area around remains. Chapter 249. Lu Shu couldn't help but feel rather emotional. Having an established background was indeed different. In order to maximize training opportunities, children from established families were able to go wherever remains would surface. Previously, everyone didn't react fast enough, Jiang Shui explained. During the incident at MT Beimeng, no one else came to compete for the magical energy. Many people didn't have accurate information and thought that the rise in magical energy around the remains was similar to that of a magical land. In fact, the remains that appeared in the northwest was too small and didn't emit much magical energy. However, it has been different ever since the MT Beimeng remains. Lu Shu was rather puzzled. So you're saying, there will be other people coming to the remains? Most of them would definitely try. The first-tier team would be those serving under the Heavenly Network, such as my brother. The second-tier team would be us, Daoyuan students, Jiang Shui said. The world's magical energy is on the rise. When we first entered the Daoyuan class, having a slight difference in aptitude would require a few more months to break through to the Class E Mysterious Senses chapter. But it's different now, the time taken has been reduced by a quarter. The rejuvenation of the world's magical energy is a long process and we have reasons to believe that the peak of the era has yet to arrive. And since remains are caused by magical energy, some felt that with the process of rejuvenation, the subsequent remains would only get larger. Remains are a small world on its own and as of now, all kinds of unusual things can be found inside. Perhaps one day remains bigger than Earth would surface. Lu Shu frowned. Bigger than Earth? This was something he never thought of. Having been to only one remains, he was still inexperienced but he was skeptical about whether such a huge remains was possible. Wouldn't it take forever to find the relic? They were having this conversation at a distance from Wang Shuli, who was also checking them out. She then turned to her friend. Is that really a guy? This is so demoralizing. Do you think little Shu swing that way? Look, there's something unusual about the way Jiang Shui looks at little Shu. What's unusual? I don't feel anything, another girl said. This is my woman's sixth sense. Wang Shuli replied firmly. Who here isn't a woman? The girl wasn't pleased. Wang Shuli was still pondering. This chap was escorted here by 2 military men, which means his background must be something special. What do you think little Shu does? Why are you so concerned about Lu Shu? Wang Shuli glanced at her. Nothing, don't jump to conclusions. Why jump to conclusions? On the other hand, Jiang Shui suddenly asked, Lu Shu, you haven't told me why you're here. Oh, I'm bringing Xiaoyu on a holiday and happened to bump into this, Lu Shu replied. We've been stuck here for a day and if not for you, I wouldn't have known what is going on. Jiang Shui gave him a puzzled look. Why didn't you go in? You can even eat a hot piping meal inside. I can go in. Lu Shu was stunned. You're now a member of the Heavenly Network and even of a lieutenant rank. Training beside the remains is definitely allowed and there is a lack of manpower here at Qingzhou. A member with contributions is allowed to enter even when on holiday, Jiang Shui explained. Lu Shu was stunned. After thinking up plans on how to get in for the whole day, it was actually this simple? But what Jiang Shui said was interested. Those with contributions could enter while the rest couldn't? The Heavenly Network must be rather disappointed with the Daoyuan students after the MT Beimeng remains. Their expectations for combat abilities had also gone up. Jiang Shui knew what was on Lu Shu's mind and added, in fact, everyone's objective here isn't just about the magical energy. Although the progress of training would slow down significantly after reaching Class D, the problem was the training method. The current situation is that among the 1.3 billion people in the country, there are only 10 class aptitudes. This is even rarer than giant pandas. All established families are trying to nurture practitioners and most of them are of Class B aptitude which cannot be increased. All Class C training methods must be imparted in the capital by Nieting personally. Nieting and Shishuajin are very strict about contributions and wouldn't settle for less. Even those from established families do not have it easier. This is also why everyone has to fight to contribute something and the remains would be the ideal place to do so. Lu Shu was thinking about what Jiang Shui said and there were many hidden messages. Firstly, there were 2 little class aptitudes with only 10 in the whole country. This also explained why the Heavenly Network would be more generous about imparting training methods to them. Secondly, most of the students from established families only had Class B aptitudes and Class A aptitudes were considered out-of-the-world talents. As of now, there were no effective methods of increasing aptitude and so the effects of the refresher fruits must be very valuable. Thirdly, Class C and above training methods must be imparted in the capital by Nieting personally. This also meant that the training methods invented by Shishuajin were only made known to Nieting. Fourthly, there would be more and more students from established families stepping into the remains to earn credits for promotion. Normal people thought of these students as arrogant and undeserving, but the truth was that most of these people were more hardworking. While the normal Daoyuan students were still fearing for their safety, students from established families had already taken the initiative to make contributions. Lu Shu didn't mind such people as the competition between them didn't concern him. But, speaking of which, if so many people needed to make contributions, this also meant more opportunities for Lu Shu to earn money. It would be perfect if he could do business with these people. Entering the remains meant that he could only exchange item for item and these people must have valuable items on them. It's basically a better transaction. Previously, the value Lu Shu got from exchanging all those spears was pathetic and this was mainly because everyone didn't have many valuables with them. But it was still better than handing it over to the Heavenly Network. Chapter 250. If those who were in the remains all came from wealthy backgrounds, they would all have watches with Geneva seals. Selling one of these watches outside would fetch hundreds of thousands of dollars. Why would he worry about life anymore? To these people, was a watch useful in a fight or battle? Everyone wasn't stupid, and they knew the pros and cons. Jiang Shui was right. The best time for magical development was not here yet. If there really comes a day when business could be done, a small target could be set before expanding the business to the entire country. After that, a larger target could be set and the business could be expanded globally. Lu Shu had already thought of all this. When the time comes, he could have a nickname as well. If he wasn't called the Master, then he could be called the Remains Businessman. It was apt. In the future, everyone wouldn't have to search for the relic in the remains anymore, they would look for him to buy equipment first. Lu Xiaoyu stared coldly at Lu Shu, who was acting weird and laughing. Jiang Shuyi was confused. Lu Shu, what are you thinking about? Kiki, nothing much. Lu Shu wiped off his saliva. The situation now was that the remains were open to his level, such that he could go without the help of Li Xiao. But he still felt that he should continue working with Li Xiao. Although his relationship with the old man Li Xiani was good, the mainland was the homeground of the heavenly network and he couldn't always rely on Jiang Shuyi for his problems, could he? If he could maintain his relations with Li Xiao, many things would be much more convenient in future. And being a heavenly king, Li Xiao would definitely always receive information quicker. Moreover, Lu Shu was actually quite willing to hang out with someone like Li Xiao. It didn't matter how reliable he was, Li Xiao is loyal and upholds justice. Lu Shu packed his stuff and prepared to journey with Jiang Shuyi with Lu Xiaoyu in hand. At that moment, Huanhu Road, which was supposed to be dark, was lit up by the massive jam of cars. At this moment, another person, escorted by 2 military personnel, walked over towards Chaka Salt Lake. As he walked past Jiang Shuyi and Lu Shu, he glanced at the 2 military personnel alongside Jiang Shuyi. He didn't acknowledge them, but walked past silently. Lu Shu was curious, he must be one of your relatives? Unknowingly, ever since the very beginning of training, Lu Shu felt as if he was really different. With the big world unraveling itself in front of him, the famous bloodlines and family clans were no longer so far away. People would be honored to be friends with them. Lu Shu, why are you staring at others? Jiang Shuyi noticed that there was something wrong with Lu Shu's gaze. Coughs, it's nothing, Lu Shu retracted his gaze. He felt that in these few days, he had to gain more knowledge. He had to track the person's whereabouts. Lu Shu got on the bus to pack his stuff. Wang Shuli noticed him. Lu Shu, are you leaving? Where do you intend to go so late at night? Lu Shu stayed silent. Actually, there was no point in hiding such stuff. Moreover, they harbored good intentions toward Lu Xiaoyu and himself. The chances of them meeting each other again wasn't large. It wasn't nice to continue hiding the truth. He spoke, I'm not leaving. It's just that I'm entering Chaka Salt Lake, there's a remains there that's about to open. Speaking of this, as long as Wang Shuli wasn't an idiot, she would roughly understand what's going on. Also, she already harbored such a guess prior to this given the way Yuan Liangtua and his friends treated Lu Shu. The aunties were astonished, and Wang Shuli and her friends only just realized that Lu Shu was a practitioner. Wang Shuli smiled, please prioritize your safety. Previously, because of the commotion over the incident at MT Beimang, people associated remains with danger. Lu Shu smiled, see you again soon. As he alighted the bus with Lu Xiaoyu, his gaze met Yuan Liangtua's. The other party's expression was quite confusing, as if he heard Lu Shu's words just now and he was contemplating going to the remains as well. Yuan Liangtua wasn't considering the question of whether or not he could make it in. In his mind, wherever Lu Shu could go, he could definitely go as well. After all, they were all Dao Yuan students. And as for what he was contemplating, he was worried that he might be faced with danger upon entering the remains. The forum on the Golden Foundation had the number of deaths of students at MT Beimang published, 371. In a time of peace, this wasn't a small number. To Yuan Liangtua and his friends, firstly, they were stuck at Class E and were unable to break through. Secondly, they had other options, and not going wouldn't result in any great harm. But to speak the truth, it was impossible for them to not have any ambitions. Wasn't it said that training near the remains was effective? Lu Shu thought that having left like that, such a point donating tool like Yuan Liangtua was gone. He had to look for new targets. But thinking again, the bulk of point contributions came from that Li Dian. As for Yuan Liangtua, at the most he was half the standard of Lu Li. Thinking of this, Lu Shu suddenly missed Lu Li. In such a short amount of time together, they parted ways again. Be it the aunties, Yuan Liangtua or Wang Shuli, they were all just passing by Lu Shu's life. There wasn't grief, nor was there happiness. Just serenity. After hesitating for a long time, Yuan Liangtua decided to go as well and he bid farewell to everyone. The bus turned silent. No one expected that there would be 7 people out of the 20-man tour group after less than half the journey. Tour guide Wang was also confused. Why were there so many practitioners in his tour group? Just when everyone was collecting their thoughts, someone noticed Yuan Liangtua and his friends coming back embarrassedly. "Little Yuan, why are you guys back again?" One of the aunties asked out of curiosity. Yuan Liangtua's face turned red. "I wasn't allowed to enter." "Huh? Didn't Lu Shu go in? Why wouldn't they let you?" The aunties didn't understand. From Yuan Liangtua's distress, plus 666. Yuan Liangtua was demoralized. He left and bid farewell with so much pride and arrogance just moments ago. He hesitated for a long time before deciding to come clean. "I'm a second lieutenant while he's a lieutenant. Aren't you all Dao Yuan students? Why is there a difference in rank?" The aunties weren't letting him off. They had to interrogate him today. From Yuan Liangtua's distress, plus 666. Yuan Liangtua explained painstakingly, "The students with the best aptitude will attain the rank of lieutenant. But in some cases, those that made great contributions will also be bestowed with the rank of lieutenant. I'm not sure which case he belongs to." Wang Shuli leaned against the window and looked at the beautiful night scenery while humming to a soft and cheerful tune.
What does it mean to be happy? 'Cause it looks like we all don't know. Glass half full or empty. Man, we just putting on a show. Try to look to the heavens to tell us things that we better.